everyone. Welcome to Shop Talk with Beth and Steph. This is our chance to talk about the stories we write about and beyond the factory walls, which you can find at automationworld.com/BTFW. Now, one of our fan favorites is always drone stories. So we've got a couple to talk about today, and we're going to start with a new UPS delivery service that, Beth, you wrote about. Can you talk a little bit about that application?
Sure. So I'm sure a lot of the readers out there have heard or at least seen something on Amazon, who made a big splash a couple of years ago about drones and deliveries. And at the time, it seemed like, what are these guys thinking of? It just seemed like a totally crazy idea. If you fast forward a few years, we're starting to see drones really creep into lots of different applications, including delivery. So now UPS is jumping on the bandwagon, and they're pilot testing this application where they basically have a van that's an electric van, so there's got to be a sustainability angle to all of this. And they have it equipped, so they have these mini drones inside on a platform. And the idea is that the person who's driving the UPS van can kind of maximize their delivery capabilities within a contained, say, neighborhood. So they drive into the neighborhood, and instead of stopping at each and every house, the van can pull into the neighborhood. They can load up, however many drones they have in the van with the different packages, open the roof of this electric van, send the drones out to do their stuff, and then they're, calibrated and fitted with all kinds of sensors and GPS and software so that the delivery person actually does their routes too, but then the drones kind of come back to the mothership, if you will.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of a way to like go drive into one area and instead of house to house to house to house, kind of deploy this drone army to expedite deliveries in close proximity. So pretty cool and not that far out there, I don't think.
When are they expecting to actually have that?
They didn't. They're doing like pilots now, but they didn't. I didn't see it specified as to exactly when we might see them. But my guess is probably not too long.
Yeah. Well, it's all about efficiency, whether it's in the plant or it's our daily lives. So that brings us to the other drone application that we wrote about, and it's this cargo bot called Gita, and it's made by Piaggio, the company is a startup called Piaggio Fast Forward. Now, Piaggio is the Italian company that makes the Vespa scooter, and they teamed up with a Harvard professor to come up with this concept called granular mobility. So we hear all about autonomous cars, but what they're trying to solve is how pedestrians are going to move in the future. And we always walk around carrying a backpack, or we've got our computer, or we're lugging groceries. What they've created is this bot that will follow you around. It's about the size of the size of a tire. It's round and rolls right behind you, and you would wear kind of like a belt, and that is your untethered connection to this bot, which just follows you around. It's also got 3D mapping to map its surroundings, and vision systems to make sure that it avoids obstacles, and a braking system and all that good stuff like a motorcycle would have. So there's a lot of safety built into it. But when you think about the freedom that it gives you to move around, you stop, have a cup of coffee, it's just following you right behind you. You want to go into a store, there's a security aspect to it. It'll only be opened up by your thumbprint. So I think it's got a huge amount of potential for the future. And what they see is people and robots kind of walking together or rolling together on the sidewalks in the cities. It's also got other applications in the future, like a mail carrier could use it for helping with deliveries, much like the UPS application, or to help elderly people if they're out and about and they just need, not only someone to help them with their stuff, but it's kind of nice too if you've got something to grab onto if you need to, if you have some issues walking. So I think it's a fun and useful application for the future.
Sounds cool, though. You just imagine New York City streets with like people, throngs of people, and their little gitmos or whatever it's called rolling behind. It
Yeah.
should make for some
And,
interesting traffic patterns.
well, I was thinking about it too, because remember the whole Segway stuff? I mean, we see them in the airports, but I guess the vision there was everybody would be rolling around on the, on the
Well, I think
sidewalk.
they've come a long way and are going a long way with some of the things like the machine learning and the vision systems that will help them sort of, avoid obstacles, whether that's something in the street or another person or anything. So I think that's where some of this autonomous vehicle research is really taking these things.
I agree. So let's move into space applications. What is NASA doing?
So this one struck me because I'm a fan of the movie The Martian. I don't know if any of our readers have seen it, but it was based on a book, and it's this premise that out in the future, this astronaut who happened to be a botanist, who happens to be Matt Damon, goes on a jaunt to Mars and inadvertently gets left behind, and so he essentially has to survive. Until the crew can come back and get him. And in order to do that, it's critical that he has a food source. So the idea of growing food in space when you're talking about these longer and longer journeys is really critical. So apparently NASA, is obviously not taking the movie to heart, but there's a connection there, and working on capabilities to grow food in space. And they came up with this thing called a plant habitat, and it's a second generation plant growth system. And essentially, it's got all the stuff in it that's calibrated to grow plants in space. But it's also outfitted with, I think it's 180 sensors and 3 cameras. And the idea is to really enable the researchers and all of the people involved in planning these space journeys visibility into how plants are actually going to grow, with microgravity and some of these things, to kind of lead them down a path where eventually, when you've got folks going to the space station or potentially to Mars, they take this little habitat growth system with them on board, and it basically grows all their own food so they can survive out there where there's nothing. So I don't know. It just struck me as a cool piece of automation technology that can really propel space travel if we're really going to take it to the next level.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I was reading the cost of what it to get food out to the space station is like astronomically high. So the
In
ability
billions,
to
I think it was like 10 million or something like that. Yeah.
I mean, if they can just grow their own food, that's a huge advancement. Another advancement is, and I love this application because I've been traveling internationally a lot, and I also love it because it's a little bit of a love story, Beth, and we all like a good love story. But this guy, Andrew, was vacationing, and he met a French girl, and they couldn't communicate, and they would use their smartphone apps to try to translate, and it was just became a barrier between them. So he went home and got all of his smart engineer friends together, and they created the Pilot smart earpiece. And it's basically an earbud with, 2 earbuds, one for each person, with the corresponding application on your smartphone. And it automatically translates. I speak English to you, and if you speak Italian, it'll automatically translate in your native language. It's using speech recognition. It's using some, key translation types of algorithms, and it's all doing it in real time. So this opens the door to, the international business traveler, or somebody on vacation. Now, it's not going to work if you're just kind of in the airport and you need to ask directions, because obviously the other person has to have the earbud, and I don't think you're going to be handing over the earbud to a stranger. But if you're right, exactly. But if you're in a business meeting, and it's an all-day business meeting, and maybe, communication is a little bit of a challenge, this is such a wonderful way just to take that out of the situation completely. So it's also affordable. It's only going to be like $250, and it's available this summer.
Wow, that's great. We don't often hear about some of these technologies that are actually that close to commercialization. So that's cool.
Very cool. So that's it for this segment of Shop Talk. Thanks for joining us. If you want to learn about these stories and other stories, just log on to automationworld.com/BTFW for Beyond the Factory Walls. Sign up for our newsletter or join us here on the Automation World YouTube channel. So until then, bye.
Bye-bye.